is Business Therapy, where business meets emotional intelligence. I am your host, Christine Salvo, and with me today, I have the lovely Cassandra Andrews. Cassandra owns and operates a global motivation and engagement business. She has spent the past 2 decades working in the people arena across a broad spectrum of industry. With private and not-for-profit sector experience under her belt, she has an unrivaled experience and a toolkit to give businesses a serious boost. With bottom lines under threat, she says the focus should be on engaging employees, accurately understanding what motivates them, improving their work experience so that they work to better effect. Because motivated employees are the backbone of a successful business. An accredited business practitioner of motivational mapping and certified practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming. Cassandra is regularly asked to speak at events where she focuses on the dynamic influence motivational maps and engagement to bring to a business. For the past 2 years, she has been the chair and judge at the prestigious Employee Experience Awards and is the founder of Engaging Norfolk, a community initiative where she is on a personal mission to make her home county of Norfolk known as a great and engaging place to work. Creating high energy, Cassandra has a mindset that resonates with business owners, leaders, and employees across the UK and USA, all from beautiful Norfolk. So Cassandra, so lovely to have you today.
Hi, Christine. It's so amazing to be here. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
It's so fun. Why don't you tell our listeners where you're calling from and what time it is there?
Yeah, so we were just chatting about that. So I'm based in the UK and it's currently 1:15 a.m. in the morning. So I'm pumped on coffee currently, but it's all good. And I'm so grateful to be able to chat with you and talk more motivation.
Yeah, I love it. So I have someone on the show right now that's talking about motivation that is up at 1:15 a.m. Yes, like that's an alignment.
Cassandra Andrews, that's what it says on the tin, right?
Yeah, I'm sitting here like, no one tells Cassandra. She's like, hey, you know what? If there's a will, there's a way. Like, even if it's the middle of the night, I'm making this happen. So I typically like to start with a little bit of history and background, kind of like your origin story. So why motivation? What got you interested? And, you know, kind of what conspired in your own life to be like, this needs to be talked about. This is a thing.
Yeah, well, what a fab question. I think, so I've been running my motivation engagement business for 3 years now. And prior to that, I had a background running a recruitment business and also working in the kind of people arena, HR. And so I've worked with all different types of people in different businesses, and they really are a passion of mine in terms of actually what makes people tick. And more recently, in the last 3 years, I just think, what can we do to make work great? Because work surely should be great, shouldn't it? And we should, I always say a bit tongue in cheek, but what's going to get you bouncing out of bed on a Monday morning, or what's going to get you staying up late on a Tuesday evening? And for me, that absolutely is motivation. And before we even think about engagement programs and initiatives, well, actually, what's getting someone out of bed? And for me, that's all about motivation, which is where I discovered a tool that kind of looks and measures motivation and just absolutely fell in love with it. And consequently, my business is all about it and helping people really enjoy working and being managed well, and as they want to be managed. It's just amazing to see every day. I have wow moments with clients, and it's just incredible. And I feel incredibly blessed to be able to be the initiator of helping people understand their own motivation.
Oh, I think that, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how often I hear kind of like, I don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Like I hear that on such a regular basis. Like, it was such a chore getting out of bed today. And like, sometimes the common mentality is like what you're saying, like, Mondays. How many memes do we see on a Monday on any kind of social media platform? And I agree with you. I'm like, hey, Mondays are cool. Like, Monday's another day to like create something, to make a difference, to have a conversation, to work on yourself, to get something done, right? So I don't particularly mind Monday myself, but I would not say that I'm in the mass majority there. So
Oh,
what are
actually,
some
Christine,
common, go ahead.
and actually, Christine, most heart attacks happen on a Monday morning, don't they? Apparently, according to stats.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, right? Like
yeah.
like I don't want to go to work so bad I would rather have a heart attack.
Yeah, quite. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but yeah. But what a situation to be in. The work causes that much stress and anxiety for you. It's
Yeah.
not a great place to be in. And especially in these kind of current times, also with uncertainty.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like to work with motivation, you almost have to understand the lack of. And right now we're kind of going there. Like what is it about the Mondays? Why do you think that people, statistically have more heart attacks on Monday morning? What would you say kind of like how would you define the problem of motivation before we get into the tool of helping
Yeah,
solve it?
I think. Well, I think that's a interesting question because I often say to people when I kind of start my sessions with groups, so let's define motivation. What do you think it is? And actually, Christine, let me throw that question to you. If I was to ask you how you define motivation, what would you say?
Ooh, well, I think there's a quite a few things that go into that. But what I would probably say that I experience myself and with other people
Yeah,
is, am I passionate about it?
yeah,
Do I feel like I'm making a difference? Is my time being valued? Am I being valued? Um, is it worth it? Kind of, right? A lot of the cases of the Mondays are, and I also think it's behavioral, right? So maybe I had some pretty unmotivating behaviors all weekend, and the Mondays, right? Like I'm still paying for it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there could be some behavioral aspects, but also I just feel like it comes to that point of, you know, I don't want to show up because, and then we can start doing the list A, B, C. And I
yeah.
do want to show up because, and the list A, B, C.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, yeah, what a beautiful answer. I mean, I think ultimately, I describe motivation as energy, and certainly in kind of my world, that's kind of how we describe it, and like what drives you to do something. And we compare energy to electricity, and we know with electricity we can't see it, but we can feel the effects of electricity if we turn a hairdryer on or turn a light on, for example. In the same way with motivation, we can't actually see it, but we can see the effects of motivation with somebody that is either motivated or demotivated. So thinking of it as energy, and how can you make sure your own energy is properly pumped and fueled before you kind of think about your team, if you're a leader of people, and making sure that their energy is kind of fully fueled so that they do want to come to work on a Monday, because we don't want kind of the toxicity in our business, do we, in terms of behaviors and attitudes.
Right. Yeah, right. Totally. So I'm having this visual in my head of like, pumped up Mondays, like, hey, good morning, like playing some like Vanilla Ice or something, and just like getting people goofy and playful and like ready for the day, and not like just jumping into the grind, maybe having a little like, how was the weekend, a little chit chat, but allowing the space for that, right? So it's not like Monday grind right into it. It's more like, hey, we all had a weekend. Like, how was yours? How was mine? What just happened? Like, let's catch up a little bit. Let's have a little time built in for the water cooler talk. So then when we do settle into our work, we're a little bit more like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, do you know? So I think there's two things there. So firstly, I think we should trademark Pumped Up Mondays, and we should start kicking that off with a hashtag.
Yes,
And
let's do it.
and secondly, what's so interesting, and I'm already kind of starting to see some of the things that might be important to you in terms of motivators. And but one of the 9 motivators, I know we'll talk about this later, is all about that sense of belonging and having kind of social connection with people. So those are the people on the Monday morning that want to do the small talk or want to do the water cooler stuff, and are really interested. But what is so interesting is if they're working with somebody that actually is a very low friend as part of their motivational map, they're actually not going to be that interested. So this is where you start to see the potential for some tension and conflict between individuals. It fascinates me.
Oh yeah, I'm already seeing it. The show The Office is such a great example of
Yeah.
Michael I'm ready to be here every day, and then they're kind of you again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go into this motivational map. Let's start talking about it. I'm curious. I can't wait. Tell me what it is.
Awesome. So I mean, I always say that whatever. How can you get accurate information around kind of the motivation of your people in the business, or indeed yourself as the leader of the business? And we know, it's so important, isn't it, that the leaders in the business put their oxygen mask on first, and they make sure that they're okay before they look at kind of other people in the business. Especially, it's been pretty challenging for leaders. If ever there was a time for leaders to show up over the last 15 months, well, wow, and so what Motivational Maps does is it is able to measure and stop what potentially management teams might have felt was a bit pink and fluffy, because actually what we're going to do is we're going to put some accurate hard data around motivation. And we're really going to get a pulse check on what the motivation is of your team or the whole organization, which can be incredibly valuable, and make sure that you're focusing on the right things. But I just think whatever data you're getting, it's wonderful. So if you use other tools to understand people, so whatever other tools those might be, so Myers-Briggs or Hogan or Thomas International, whatever, brilliant, because what we want is insight to know how to work together better. But where Motivational Maps is quite different is that we're looking at motivation that kind of isn't static and fixed like our kind of personality might be, which some of these other tools are predominantly looking at. And we know our motivation kind of ebbs and flows depending on what we're talking about, and at what point in our life we are. And I think it's probably important to mention that when I talk about motivation and somebody's motivators, actually what we're really talking about is about their values. And so we know that our values change in life in terms of what's important to us when we're 20, probably when we're 30, 40, 50,
Yeah.
60, it's going to be a bit different, isn't it? So that's why we can keep checking in, and we can do it again and again. So what the motivational map does is it's based around three things. It's based around Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the Enneagram, the personality profiling tool, and Edgar Schein's career anchors. And it's identified that we've all got 9 motivators in us. So we've all got them. There's no right or wrong or good or bad. So, it isn't as intimidating as maybe some other kind of profiling, because what we can't ever do is pigeonhole someone and say, well, you're this or you're that. What we can say is at this point in time, these are the things that are important to you. And, this is probably what your behavior is going to be, and how you want to be spoken to. And so what Motivational Maps has kind of realized is that there are 9 motivators in all of us. So we've all got them. And what's interesting is that we've all got them in different levels of intensity. And this is a bit where we see, where some of us have got really extreme scores. So I fall into that camp. So I really know what I want in my life. And I can tell you without doubt, that's freedom and autonomy. Hence, I run my own business. And the thing that's so deeply interesting is that not only does it tell us how important these motivators are for us, but it also tells us how fulfilled each of the motivators are for us. So we can start to see, of those 9 motivators, okay, so which need a bit of nourishment at the moment, which are doing really well, and those motivators that are doing really well, why is that? How can I sustain that? And it gives you, as well as that, an overall score or metric. So it will say, you're 80% motivated or you're 40% motivated. And so as a individual, you can start to kind of really reflect on your own motivation before your manager even looks at it, in terms of those.
Would you mind terribly, Cassandra, telling us the 9?
Yeah, of course. So thank you. I'd be delighted to. And I tell you what, Christine, it'd be really interesting to see if you kind of recognize yourself in any of them, and what you think might be maybe your top three, because the top three are always the most important. So they kind of fall into three clusters, and the first cluster is all about kind of relationships. And so these motivators really want to be safe and secure. So the first motivator is called the defender, and they're really about kind of seeking security, predictability, things being safe. So they're the people that will be making up their own version of the truth if they're not communicated to properly. And so those people we really need to over communicate to, especially during those times of lockdown, and people working at home and furlough, etc. Then the next one is called the friend, which I've already kind of started to discuss. So they really want belonging and meaningful relationships with the people they work with. They're very loyal, and ultimately they want to be liked. And that would be very important to them. And then the third motivator in that kind of cluster is called the star. So they really want recognition and respect and self-esteem and a bit of kudos. So they're really motivated by things like medals and awards and certificates and job titles and anything where they can kind of have that kind of kudos, I suppose the word might be. And then the second cluster we call kind of the achievement motivators, and they're all about being very present. And so we have what's called the director in there, and they basically want control and influence over people or resources. So they want to be the boss. They want to make important, critical decisions. They want to control. They don't really need to be an expert. They're happy kind of having the experts around them that they control. And then we have the builder, which is all about having this above average standard of living. So they are motivated by financial reward. They are the most commercial of all of the motivators. So they really value things like kind of clear goals, targets, KPIs that are usually financially rewarded. And then finally, in that cluster, we have what we call the expert, and the expert is as it sounds. So they really want to get the detail, to be an expert in their field. And certainly if their expert scores were quite high in terms of intensity, they're probably going to want like this granular level of information and detail. And one of the super interesting things that I see with a lot of clients and I work with a lot of people that are high experts, is they are, dare I say it, potentially what one might call perfectionists.
Yeah.
So they are setting themselves unrealistic expectations of what they can achieve. And, so we really need to watch out for their well-being. It's super important. And then the final cluster is what we call growth. So they're very kind of big picture thinkers. So we have the creator, that's all about innovation, moving at a super fast pace. They really want to kind of express their creative potential. They love problems and kind of challenges, big blue sky thinkers. Then we have the spirit, which I mentioned is particularly high for me. And spirits just want freedom and autonomy. They don't want anybody making decisions for them about them. So policies and bureaucracy, anything that can kind of controls them, they will find quite demotivating in a work setting, or even being micromanaged by a manager. And then the final motivator is what we call the searcher, and the searcher just wants meaning and purpose and being able to make a difference. They want to collaborate. They have really clear core values in terms of the things that are important to them, and they just want to do things for other people and make a difference for other people. So, Christine, that's the 9. I don't know if there's any that that really kind of speak to you.
Yeah, like a lot of them. But as you said in the beginning, we all have all of them, which is kind of fun. So a little bit of the challenge is to kind of figure out which ones are, like you said, your top 3. And one of my favorite things to do on this show is to challenge our listeners. I always love to challenge the listeners here.
I love
it. Listen to that, listen to it again, kind of sit with it, right? What is that? Because I think that these motivators, matter in every aspect of our life. I mean, work is one place, but gosh, if you're a parent and you're kind of trying to hang out with your kids and you can see some of these traits,
Yeah.
or at least what's motivating them, oh my gosh, it just streamlines communication, behavior, consequence, reward. And so that's
Yeah.
the same thing with bosses, right? But anything we do one place, we can do any place. So taking a look at this and being like, wow, that's crazy cool.
Do
So
you know, so they were created for the work environment, but let's be honest, we're talking about values, and our values don't really change, do they? If we're
right, no.
at home. And I know that my values absolutely have probably been, because they're such spikes. I know that probably through most of my life they've been, the same top three, which is quite unusual. And I look at them and I look at this like burning spirit that I have, and I think, oh yeah, that's why I got divorced.
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense. And interesting what you say about children, and to the point that actually the creator, who is just a genius, James Sale, he has also created what's called youth maps. So for children between sort of the ages of, I think about 8 and 17. So you can get, so the parent, the child, and the teacher kind of do kind of look at this child's map, and they kind of work together. It's not something I'm trained in, but I think it's incredible for teachers, because it's about communication as much as anything else.
Yes. Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that that resource. So is that a book or is that a program, the youth maps?
So no, so it's the same sort of program as what I do, which is kind of adult and organizational maps, but it's based for kids ultimately. Okay. So they would just need, if somebody was interested, they would just need to go to somebody that did youth maps. And if people were interested, I can point them in the right direction of the people that could help them with that.
Yes, that is so cool. So I'm thinking, like, for me, being an entrepreneur and self-employed, number one is always pretty important to me, right? Like, I need to make sure that my bills are paid. Yeah. And that does become, but it's not necessarily the top priority, but it's definitely something that if it's not working, I'm going to be concerned about, right? That's going to be a top stressor for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And or like if I'm working someplace and I don't feel like the compensation's there, that would kind of probably be a downer for me. But I'm not necessarily maybe I'm the builder, but I don't resonate with that completely.
Yeah, from what you're saying, I think that's a little bit more defender. So defenders like money to know that they've got security, so they can pay their bills, they've got some savings.
And play, I love to play.
Yeah, don't we all?
Definitely the spirit. One of the reasons I've chosen self-employment is I like to play. I like to take a lot of time off, and travel is my passion. So, it's really hard to get that in a regular job. When I say, hey, day one, I want 5 weeks a year off, and they're like, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to do twice the work as an entrepreneur, but I get guaranteed freedom and autonomy. And to me, that's a really good exchange. I don't mind it at all.
Yeah. And it's so important to think, because I know, so in the UK, we've had 3 lockdowns, and during the very first lockdown at the beginning of last year, I had days and I live alone also. So, I just had days of just thinking, gosh, I just want to get out my house and I'm not allowed. And my spirit just was completely undernourished. I'd gone from like networking all over the place to suddenly being in the house, and it was quite challenging for me. But actually knowing accurately what my motivators are meant that I could nourish it in the right way, and I knew what, rather than just feeling a bit rubbish and not knowing why I felt a bit rubbish, I could articulate that actually that's my spirit that needs some nourishment. Let me see what I can do about that. And I'm lucky enough to live by the beach, so being able to get for a walk on the beach was very helpful.
Yeah. So looking at, I love that you pointed that out, that, this past year and a half has been it's been hard on us. And I think we're so desperately trying to get back to normal that we're kind of skipping over what we've been through. At least that's what I'm noticing in people. And I'm like, wait, hold up. Like, we have to acknowledge what happened here. And also that it didn't just happen to us, it happened to everyone else too.
Yeah.
So it's shared, but at the same time, it did affect us. So right now, more than ever, and that's kind of the second part of the challenge, is for our listeners, if you can kind of identify and then make a plan to start nourishing, right?
Yeah.
Take a look at that.
Absolutely.
So Cassandra, that time went by far too quick. Oh my goodness. But for our listeners that would like to know more or get a hold of you, where could they find you?
So I'm all over social media, but probably the best way to find me is by my website, which will direct you to where you need to go. And my website is just my name. So it's cassandraandrews.com.
Excellent. And they can find out more information about all of your programs and services there, correct?
They absolutely can. And for kind of accurate, kind of up-to-date information, the best place to kind of click to from there is LinkedIn, without doubt.
Wonderful. I appreciate you coming on so much and sharing these motivators and discussing kind of all this knowledge in this area. And I can't tell you, like, we just need more people like you doing work like this. The world really is turning into a better place with this kind of stuff being done. So can't thank you enough.
Well, no, thank you. And it's clearly half an hour has gone by very quickly, and I could talk motivation for the rest of the night. So, so thank you so much for the opportunity. And I hope it helps your listeners, and I hope even if they can just kind of tap in to think about what their motivators might be, or those of the people that they're working with, if they've got some challenges, well, maybe, I don't believe anybody goes to work to be difficult. Maybe their motivators aren't being fulfilled for them at this point in time.
Yes, such a good point. All right. This has been Business Therapy. I am your host, Christine Salvo, licensed marriage and family therapist, advanced certified mediator, and internationally certified hypnotherapist. Thank you so much for listening, and have a pumped up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Bye-bye. This is Business Therapy, where business meets emotion.